When it comes to tariffs, and we're looking at American exceptionalism, I think a lot of the corporations will benefit. China in itself has violated the Monroe Doctrine, and we are just seeing it step by step, both in the Panama Canal. We're seeing it in Latin and South America. We're seeing it, with AI. We are seeing where they are head-to-head competing with us. And how do we control that other than, export control and tariffs?
Sure, right. I want to dig into what Donald Trump is saying, because
Sure.
we're kind of moving into a slightly incremental fashion here. Nothing's really been implemented yet on terms of tariffs. But this review that I mentioned is important. Will it actually change government spending? There are a lot of stakeholders here who could be impacted in so many different industries, you can't quantify it in one conversation.
I mean, the United States is the largest giver of humanitarian aid. It's less than 1% of our budget. Is there waste, fraud, and abuse in it? Absolutely. Can we tighten things? Absolutely. Is a review appropriate? Yes, it is. 90 days, maybe a little long, maybe a little short, but money, once it's spent, once it's programmed, it's hard to unprogram it.
Right. So explain that to us, because you spent enough time on Capitol Hill and in Washington to get how this works. If money is authorized and appropriated, what if the president just decides not to spend it?
He runs up against the will of Congress, and, having worked for two appropriators, I'm well familiar with this. Look, you could zero it out in a budget of the next year, but once it's gone, once it's from a different fiscal year, it's awfully hard.
So lawsuits have already been filed. Someone's always making money, Rob.
Always the lawyers.
Yeah. Well, so does this hold up in court?
I think a review is legal.
Okay.
So
check back after the deadline.
Yeah, check back after the deadline.
Interesting.
Listen, you can always hold funding to make sure it's being spent appropriately or programmed appropriately. You can't zero it out. So I think what the president is doing is actually legal.
Okay, sure.
The time frame might be under question.
Is the media getting over its skis by framing this as an attempt to expand the unilateral authority of the executive, or is that actually what's happening?
I mean, what president doesn't try and expand the executive authority? I think the media is always getting over its skis. I mean, there's not a president in the world that doesn't want to power grab and say this, and there's not a Congress in the world that doesn't push back. This has been going since time and time again.
If this, understood on your point, if this actually goes through, though, and Donald Trump is kind of picking which agency is going to get the funding or the grant money or whatever, that he finally got what every president ever wanted, the line item veto.
True.
Is that about right?
Yeah, that's actually right. But let's see if that goes through. We have to go through reconciliation and everything else,
Oh, I want to get into that with you now. Let's move to tariffs. Donald Trump has been keeping us guessing. We thought there'd be this massive across-the-board tariff implemented on day one, as he had threatened. He's been kind of tiptoeing around this.
I think he's been incredibly strategic.
Well, you could certainly make that point on Sunday.
I will make that point.
He did update things last evening, though, in speaking with reporters. Here's what Donald Trump said last night about tariffs.
And remember, again, the word tariff. We're going to protect our people and our businesses, and we're going to protect our country with tariffs. Tariffs on steel, aluminum, and copper, and things that we need for our military. We have to bring production back to our country. The incentive is going to be there because they have no tariff whatsoever. And we're going to look at pharmaceuticals, drugs. We're going to look at chips, semiconductors, and we're going to look at steel.
That's a lot of stuff. Now, he went on to say that he wants to enact across-the-board tariffs much bigger than the 2.5% that's been suggested. Is the whole point here the gambit, the chip on the table, what we saw in Colombia, this short-lived trade battle? It was hours long on Sunday. Or will we see
it was absolutely fantastic.
How come?
We have a plane in air. We have a president of a smaller country, negating what we consider a jurisdictional act. He says no, and Donald Trump says big stick. Okay, 25%. 25% to a country that is reliant on its banana and flour exports to the United States would have decimated it.
Yeah. Our cup of coffee would have got pretty expensive, right?
I mean.
But they backed off.
Yes.
No tariff.
No tariff.
So is that the model, though? Or are we going to see across-the-board tariffs, and you guys convince me to bring it in?
I don't think so. I think the president is using his bully pulpit, and well done him, to show if you treat the United States with respect and uphold our commerce, then you will get a fair deal.
You mentioned Panama Canal. Marco Rubio's first trip will apparently include a stop in Panama.
Needs to be.
Okay, smart business. What does it lead to?
So look, I was in Panama last year, and the moment you get off the plane, Joe, the largest building you see says Huawei on it. I mean, we have an issue, and I go back to this, and talking about the Monroe Doctrine, our hemisphere of commerce and influence has been violated by China. And they continue to encroach in an area of commerce for us. I don't think it's unfair that we review what our process is and that, we put America first.
Is it about pushing China out of these ports on each side of the canal, or is it about actually regaining control? Because again, do you believe the spirit of the statement, or do you take him literally when he says to regain control?
I think we need parity because of so much shipping and commerce.
So what does that look like?
That means that as you use our currency as your currency in your bank machine, that you understand who your trading partner and your partner in your hemisphere is.
If it's the Monroe Doctrine,
yes.
You just touched Panama. What about Cuba?
I mean, I think we need to take a good look at, where the good actors and bad actors are.